Welcome, legend. Let's turn insight into action and start creating the future one thought at a time. It is claimed as scientific fact that stress hormones downregulate gene expression and over time contribute to disease. Because of our large neocortex, humans can trigger the stress response purely by thinking about problems, thereby releasing those chemicals. This implies that thoughts can impair health. If thoughts can make us ill, then they might also restore health, and the answer offered here is an emphatic yes. Welcome to our channel, where our mission is to expose you to people and ideas that help you execute on your ambitions. Comment 1. If you have ever noticed stress or rumination take a toll on your body. Comment 2. If you haven't experienced that or remain skeptical. Turn aspirations into action. Today's guest is a New York Times best-selling author and among the world's most in-demand speakers. He has delivered lectures and intensive workshops in over 30 countries on 5 continents, seeking to help people understand and harness the power of the mind. His work sits at the nexus of neuroscience, epigenetics, and quantum physics, and he collaborates with researchers across disciplines to conduct extensive studies on meditation's effects, employing tools like epigenetic assays, EEG-based brain mapping, and gas discharge visualization. He aims to advance both scientific and public understanding of mind-driven health optimization, a theme explored deeply in his influential book, You Are the Placebo. His instruction has significantly shaped how people view a broad array of brain-related issues concerning mindfulness and well-being. He serves on the faculty of Quantum University in Hawaii, the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies in New York, and the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. He is also an invited chair of the research committee at Life University in Atlanta and consults for corporations providing lectures and workshops. Please welcome the author who appeared in films such as Heal People, Versus the State of Illusion, and Unleashing Creativity. The author of Becoming Supernatural, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Thanks for joining us. Let's explore your view of the self and how you connect science to memory formation and our tendency to continually reenact the past. It's fascinating. I want to examine the idea of the habitual self. What does that mean? What is the habit of you? A habit is a repetitive set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions formed via repetition. A habit is established when repeated practice lets the body perform it more efficiently than the conscious mind. Consider mornings. People wake up and immediately focus on their problems. Those problems are neural circuits, memories linked to specific people, objects, times, and places. And if the brain records the past, then at the day's outset, they're already thinking from the past. Each memory carries an emotional charge. Emotions result from prior experiences. Thus, recalling problem-laden memories immediately evokes unhappiness, sadness, or pain. Thought and feeling together constitute one state of being, so at daybreak, many people inhabit the past. Consequently, the familiar past becomes the likely future. If you accept that thoughts help shape destiny, yet you cannot think beyond your current feelings, then by letting feelings drive thought, you are literally thinking from the past and will largely reproduce the same life. Next, people reach for their phones, checking WhatsApp texts, email Facebook, snapping a photo of their feet to post, tweeting, scrolling Instagram, reading news, quickly reconnecting with all that is familiar in their lives. Then they proceed through routines, getting out of bed on the same side, using the bathroom, grabbing coffee, showering, dressing, commuting the usual route, doing the same tasks, and meeting the same people who trigger familiar emotions. This solidifies into a program. Their free will yields to the program without any external force. When change is required, the cycle's repetition operates as a subconscious script. By age 35, roughly 95% of who we are is a memorized suite of behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, ingrained attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions like a software program. With the remaining 5% of conscious will, someone may declare, "I want health, happiness, freedom," yet the body runs another script. How then to change? One must move beyond the analytical mind, which divides the conscious from the subconscious. Meditation is the tool with practice. People can alter and slow brain waves, and when done correctly, they access the operating system where meaningful change is possible. Many, however, wait for crises, trauma, illness, loss, or tragic events before deciding to change. The message here is why wait? Learning and transformation can occur through pain and suffering, or through joy and inspiration. What's exciting now is that people are awakening. The most compelling insights for me emerge when you discuss trauma, how individuals undergo a traumatic event and then mentally rehearse it, creating cascading effects. Why is moving beyond trauma so difficult? The more intense your emotional reaction to an experience, the greater its emotional magnitude, the more attention you devote to its cause. When the brain focuses fully on the cause, it captures a snapshot, a memory. Highly emotional events tend to form long-term memories. Consequently, people think within the neural circuits of that event and feel within the chemical limits of those emotions. When reacting emotionally to someone or something, most believe they cannot regulate that reaction. But if an emotional reaction persists its refractory period over hours or days, that becomes a mood. Ask someone why they're in a mood, and they might cite an incident from 5 days prior, still sustaining the same response. If the reaction continues for weeks or months, it evolves into temperament. Why is he so bitter? Because the prolonged reaction has become characteristic. Something happened 9 months ago. If the same emotional response endures for years, it becomes a personality trait. Therefore, the practice begins with shortening the refractory period of emotional reactions. After an event, people repeatedly recall it because stress-related survival emotions command vigilance, pay attention to be ready should it recur. Many spend roughly 70% of life in survival mode under stress. They continually anticipate worst-case scenarios based on past events. From countless possibilities, they effectively choose the most negative outcome and emotionally invest in it with fear, conditioning the body into chronic fear. Repetition can program the body to have panic attacks unpredictably as the response becomes subconscious. Ask someone why they are the way they are, and they may cite an event from 15-20 years ago, biologically implying they have not changed since. The emotions from that experience deliver a surge of energy to brain and body. People can become addicted to that rush, using life's problems to reaffirm their limitations, simply to feel something. Thus, when it's time to change, and you ask again, "Why are you this way?" each recollection reproduces the original chemistry, firing the same neural circuits and imprinting the same emotional signature onto the body. The rationale. The body functions as the unconscious mind. It cannot distinguish between emotions generated by real events and those produced by thought alone. Consequently, the body believes it is reliving the past experience continuously, 24/7, 365. Those emotions prompt specific thoughts which in turn reproduce the same emotions, reinforcing the loop. The person's whole state of being remains anchored in the past. The hardest part of change is choosing differently than the day before. The instant you make a new choice, expect discomfort and unfamiliarity. Why is it so uneasy? Is it because neurons that fire together wire together, making the loop feel natural? You've vividly described how quickly neural connections form remarkably fast. Is that why change feels so uncomfortable? Largely, yes. Continual firing and wiring makes circuits more rigid. One thought triggers the program, and then the emotion follows the thought. A fearful thought breeds anxiety. Sensing anxiety, the brain consults the body and affirms it, prompting more congruent thoughts. The cycle's repetition conditions the body to become the mind. When change arrives and a person steps into the river of change, making a different choice, suddenly they no longer feel the same. The body protests. We've done this for 35 years. How will you just stop suffering? Guilt, shame, complaining, blaming, making excuses, or self-pity. In the unknown, the body craves the familiar and begins steering the mind. Start tomorrow. You're just like your mother. You'll never change. This won't work. It doesn't feel right. If you accept those thoughts as true, they yield the same choices, behaviors, experiences, and emotions, reinstating the old pattern. Let's clarify. The body becomes the mind or the unconscious mind. What exactly do you mean? They are related ideas. In effect, your body operates as the unconscious mind. If you sit and imagine a worst-case future scenario and start feeling the associated emotion, your body cannot differentiate between an outer real event and an internally generated one. Consequently, people continually reinforce their emotional states. When asked to relinquish those emotions, they may intend to, but the body, deeply conditioned, often overrides the mind. Have you tried to change a habit only to feel your body pull you back into the familiar? Comment 1. If you have experienced success using meditation or breath to stay present. Comment 2. If you have experienced the struggle of slipping back into old patterns. The servant has become the master. When people enter the unknown, they often prefer familiar feelings like guilt and suffering simply because they're predictable. The unknown is frightening due to its uncertainty. People say, I can't predict my future. I'm in the unknown. My response: the best way to predict your future is to create it not from the known, but from the unknown. Which thoughts do you choose to repeatedly fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors do you intend to demonstrate today? Through mental rehearsal, closing your eyes to practice the desired action or reaction. If you are truly present, the brain doesn't distinguish vividly imagined events from real three-dimensional experience. In doing so, you start installing neural hardware that resembles the event as if it has already happened. Your brain then shifts from being a record of the past to a roadmap for the future. With continued priming, the hardware turns into software. You may naturally begin behaving like a happier person. The hardest part is training the body emotionally to feel the future before it arrives. That means you can't wait for success to feel empowered, for wealth to feel abundant, for a new relationship to feel love, or for healing to feel whole. That's the old cause and effect model, waiting for something external to change our internal state, then focusing on whatever caused the shift. This keeps people in a Newtonian worldview, living in lack while hoping circumstances will change. What is the Newtonian world? It emphasizes predictability, forecasting outcomes. By contrast, the quantum model is about causing effects. The instant you feel abundant and worthy, you begin generating wealth. When you feel empowered, you move towards success. When you feel whole, healing begins. When you genuinely love yourself and life, you attract correspondences. Here you cause effects, unlike the victim stance of saying, I am this way because of that person, thing, or event. They made me think and feel this. Flip the script, and you become the creator of your world. My thinking and feeling are altering my outcomes. That's a different game, one that nurtures belief in our role as creators. So how do we move from a negative life-controlling emotion and the cycle of thinking about it, which triggers chemistry that trains the body to feel that way, making recurrence more likely, an unconscious vicious loop? You asked, does thinking create environment, or does environment create thinking? Mechanistically, how do we shift to visualizing an empowering state, our future self? Is meditation the path? What does it look like? If you aren't defined by a future vision, you fall back on past memories and become predictable. If each morning you lack a compelling future image, then as you see the same people, visit the same places, and do the same things at the same times, your personal reality starts shaping your personality rather than your personality shaping your reality. In effect, the environment is unconsciously dictating how you think and feel. Every person, object, place, and experience has a neural representation, and each interaction generates emotion. Some will use a boss to reaffirm an addiction to judgment, an adversary to reinforce hatred, or friends to validate suffering. They come to rely on the outer world to feel anything. So true change requires becoming greater than your environment and its seductive pull. Why meditation? Sit down, close your eyes, and disengage from the external world. Seeing fewer things reduces stimulation. Soft music or earplugs further cuts sensory input. You are actively disconnecting. If you can seat your body and instruct it like an animal, stay here, we'll eat later. Emails and texts can wait. For now, obey. When you do this properly, no eating, smelling, tasting, or outward experiences, you must admit you're defined by thought alone. When the body tries to retreat to its emotional past, notice your attention on that emotion. Since energy follows attention, you're draining power from the present into the past. Recognize this and settle the body back into now. The body argues, it's 8 a.m. We're usually angry in traffic, or it's 11 a.m. We normally check emails and judge people. It seeks its predictable chemical state. Each time you notice the craving and return to the present, you inform the body it is no longer in charge. You are. Your will begins to exceed the program. Repetition matters. Do it again and again, as with training a horse or a dog, until the body sits. When the body finally yields and is no longer the mind, energy is released, shifting from particle to wave matter to energy, freeing us from emotions that bind us to the familiar past. We've observed this thousands of times and can now predict it on brain scans. Let's dig deeper into metacognition, the idea that you don't have to believe every thought. I love how you explain that. Indeed. Humans possess a large frontal lobe, about 40% of the brain, yet most people assume thoughts are true. A key personal realization. A thought isn't necessarily true. If you think 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% are repeats from yesterday, and you believe thoughts shape destiny, your life won't change much. The same thoughts produce the same choices, the same behaviors yield the same experiences, and those experiences generate the same emotions. Becoming aware of this loop of how you think, act, and feel is metacognition. Why is it important? The more conscious you are of previously unconscious mind-body states, the less likely you are to slip into them during the day. Thoughts won't pass unexamined because your practice is to know thyself, and meditation literally means to become familiar with. By becoming familiar with the thoughts, behaviors, and emotions of the old self, you retire it while you fire and wire new thoughts and condition the body to new emotions. With repetition, the new state becomes familiar. Like gardening, you must remove weeds, clear last year's growth, and lift out the rocks, metaphors for emotional blocks, to loosen the soil and make room for new planting. We learn most about ourselves and others when uncomfortable, because discomfort typically triggers an automatic program. That program appears when we resist staying present and engaging consciously. Teaching people via meditation to remain present during discomfort results in less emotional reactivity in daily life, less rigidity around one's thoughts, and greater awareness of slipping into habit. That awareness initiates change. We must unlearn before we relearn. Break the habit of the old self before reinventing the new. Prune synaptic connections and grow new ones. Unfire, unwire, then refire and rewire. We must unmemorize the body and install a new mind and emotion, deprogram and reprogram. It's an active, two-step process. I appreciate that framing as action. You also said something powerful. Insights alone are inert. They do nothing by themselves. So what should we do with insight? How do we turn a breakthrough into more than a fleeting moment? Many viewers are likely having dozens of ahas right now. That was my experience researching you. The danger is having an aha and then doing nothing. Exactly. People can retreat to mediocrity and use insight as justification for not leaping. They might say, I have a chemical imbalance, or my father was overbearing and a perfectionist. This explains me crafting narratives that excuse inaction. The insight becomes permission to remain limited. Someone may want to move past anxiety, but even if you remove the trigger, say hypothetically restrain the ex-husband and send him to the moon, what then? Change is still required. If an enemy dies or circumstances shift and that person vanishes, many will find someone else to hate. We often substitute new reasons to sustain the same emotions. Knowledge is power, but self-knowledge is self-empowerment. How much of this comes down to dividing emotions into negative states with adverse neurochemistry, where if you live perpetually in those states, illness may be close, and the contrasting positive states of happiness, joy, empowerment, with a different neurochemical profile that supports immune function. At a basic level is that one of the main ideas. Yes, let's frame it as survival versus creation. As noted, people spend around 70% of their time in stress in survival. In nature, organisms handle short-term stress. A deer chased by coyotes returns to grazing once safe. The event ends. Stress is the state in which brain and body are pushed out of balance, homeostasis, and the stress response is the body's built-in mechanism to restore order. For example, you're driving. Which mode do you find yourself in most days, survival or creation? Comment 1. If you have experienced being stuck in survival emotions and want to shift. Comment 2. If you have experienced momentum toward creation by practicing elevated emotions. Someone cuts you off. You brake hard, maybe gesture in anger, then settle down, the event passes and balance returns. But what if the predator is your coworker beside you all day, constantly pressing emotional buttons? If you activate the stress response and can't shut it off, you move toward disease. No organism can survive in emergency mode for extended periods. It's asserted as scientific fact that stress hormones downregulate gene expression and over time contribute to disease. Because of our large neocortex, humans can trigger stress purely by thought. Ruminating on problems releases those chemicals. Thus, thoughts can make us ill. If so, can thoughts make us well? The proposed answer is yes. Which emotions are tied to survival? They include anger, aggression, hostility, hatred, competition, fear, anxiety, worry, pain, suffering, guilt, shame, unworthiness, envy, and jealousy. These arise with stress hormones. Psychology may label them normal states of consciousness. I consider them altered states. In survival, we remember traumatic events more vividly to prepare for recurrence. With the survival gene on, you might have 10 great moments in a day, and fixate on the single bad one. Attention locks onto the negative. How does epigenetics fit here? What's occurring at a molecular level? You've discussed proteins and how signals influence our genes to produce change. What does that look like? Epigenetics, epi meaning above the gene, was initially framed after Watson and Crick's discovery of DNA as the blueprint of life, implying diseases were gene-driven. Yet fewer than 5%, perhaps closer to 1%, are born with genetic conditions like type 1 diabetes, Tay-Sachs, or sickle cell disease. The remaining 95–99% arise from lifestyle and choices. Identical twins with the same genome can have divergent outcomes, one dying at 51, the other at 85, demonstrating the same genes in different environments. The conclusion shifted. It's not genes alone, but environmental signals that influence gene expression and disease. Yet even that isn't the full story. Two co-workers may share 25 years of exposure to a carcinogen, but only one develops cancer. There must be internal regulatory factors that protect one while the other becomes ill. If the environment signals genes and the emotional outcome is the end product of experience, can we signal genes ahead of environment by cultivating elevated emotions? In our research, we measured about 7,500 gene expressions among participants, attending a 4-day advanced event, practicing seated walking, lying down, and standing meditations. After 4 days, we observed 8 commonly upregulated genes, 2 associated with suppressing cancer cells and tumor growth, 2 tied to neurogenesis, 1 signaling stem cells to repair damaged areas, and 1 linked to oxidative stress responses. Numerous health supportive genes appeared to promote flourishing. Imagine the effects over 3 months. We also assessed telomeres, the protective DNA caps indicating biological age. Participants meditated 5 of 7 days for 60 days. Afterward, 74% lengthened their telomeres, 40% significantly, 20% remarkably, suggesting a small reclaiming of life. A 10% increase could be viewed as regaining 10% of biological time. Incredible. Before my final question, where can people find you online? Final question, what impact do you want to have? Ultimately, I want to empower people so deeply that they need fewer external things to be happy or to regulate moods and behaviors. I hope they tap into innate power to change themselves and the world, creating more peace, greater wholeness, and deeper connection, supporting loving and serving one another better. If most people focus on self-work and present their highest ideal to the world improves. That's my passion, and I'm seeing it unfold more than I expected. Joe, thank you for being here. Truly amazing having you. Everyone watch his videos. They're among the clearest explanations of the mind I've encountered. I'm insisting that certain people in my life see them. They compellingly show how we construct ourselves through habits. Thoughts generate feelings. Feelings spawn matching thoughts, forming a cycle until personality becomes a finite set of neural patterns. This perspective illuminates how we experience the world. When people grasp that they have control that they need not believe, every thought they can step outside the loop, use metacognition to examine thinking. Choose what to focus on and craft a different self with elevated positive emotions that build empowerment. It's remarkable, and he digs into mechanisms which I love. You won't regret exploring his work. Expect powerful insights. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Until next time, be legendary. Thanks for being here, truly incredible. And thank you all for watching and being part of this community. Subscribe for weekly videos on developing a growth mindset, cultivating grit, and unlocking your full potential. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep creating the future you want one thought at a time.